You know what? One of these days I'm going to remember that I need to click the unmute button first. One of these days. It will happen, I promise you. So, yeah, I was just talking about like Sacha Baron. You guys are wondering. I was saying Sacha Baron Cohen, I was too small and I needed to get bigger, and Sacha Baron Cohen can't be that much bigger than me. So, yeah, I fixed it there. Lovely technology that we got. So, good morning, everyone. Happy day after Memorial Day. I hope that everybody had a great weekend, a great 3-day weekend. And, it's a time that we celebrate. I mean, we celebrate, but we honor those who have fallen in sacrifice of, the United States in protecting the country, protecting the people of the country. So I know there was an announcement made out on my Facebook page, but I never really got a good chance to say thank you to all the people who are military service members who put their lives on the line. And I know it's Memorial Day. It's about the people who have fallen. But, you guys are always taking the chance, right? You guys are always taking the chance that Memorial Day will be a day in remembrance of you. And I really respect that. I honor that. And, boy, it takes a ton of courage. And I really, really appreciate everything that you guys do. So, now, today, I tell you what, this is kind of interesting because I remember when this was first announced that Microsoft was taking over GitHub, right? It's a big deal, big whoop-to-do. It was like $7 billion that Microsoft spent on getting GitHub. And, the detractors of Microsoft came out of the woodwork, right? It's just another monopolization. It's just another, Microsoft is basically dooming us all with their practices. And, I had a bit more of an optimistic attitude. So, speaking of which, I thought I'd just kind of come out and show this little bit here of something I did say in that video on my thoughts on Microsoft acquiring GitHub. So, first and foremost, like I said earlier, Microsoft is really making a shift in philosophy from the proprietary, everything, behind closed doors system to an open source, open community, cross-platform type of ecosystem. We see that both with, in terms of all of the different libraries that they develop on GitHub. They have like ASP.NET Core.NET, Entity Framework, etc. All of those are posted up on GitHub and are open to the community, including the Roslyn compiler, you name it. There's a lot of Microsoft products that are now being posted out as open source that you can contribute to. The other thing that we see is cross-platform with .NET Core. .NET Core is a cross-platform architecture and framework that you can now do your software development and deploy it to Linux or Apple or Windows, and it's all going to work the same. It doesn't really matter. Same thing with Visual Studio Code, right? Visual Studio Code is this cross-platform IDE that you can do software development in. And not only that, but it's not a C# specific IDE, right? You can do PHP development, you can do Python development, you can do Java development, you can do JavaScript with Node development. You name it, you can develop in that IDE in Visual Studio Code, for a cross-platform. All right, I'm going to stop it there. But basically, my thoughts on this were, this isn't a travesty. This isn't an awful thing. This is potentially a very good thing, having Microsoft be at the helm of GitHub. Not necessarily that, they're going to have to try to. I think the biggest concern was, how is Microsoft going to recover their $7 billion investment? Well, we discovered today. Well, I shouldn't say today, but I came across this article today of something that was posted about 5 days ago of one of the potential ways that I think Microsoft might be trying to recover some of their money. And here's the thing. It's good for developers. The way that Microsoft is going to try to make a little bit of cash on this is actually good for developers. So I came across this article here. Let me just pull it up. Oops, that's the wrong window. There we go. Let me switch over now. Technology is wonderful. There it is. Fund your favorite open source projects using GitHub's new sponsorship program. So this is very much like the YouTube program, right? The YouTube sponsorship, the YouTube membership. which I offer on my other channel, my Programming Made Easy channel, right? Where you can subscribe for like 5 months and it helps to continue to grow the channel. Fund your favorite open source projects using GitHub's new sponsorship program. So many of you guys might have also heard of Patreon. There's a lot of these content developers that work off YouTube or Facebook or whatnot, and they make money by offering up sponsorships or some sort of, I hate to say sponsorship. Most people think of sponsorship as far as if I wanted you to, I have a product and I want you to sponsor, or I'm going to sponsor you on behalf of my product. But this is actually where, you can, like a Patreon account, right? If you want to sponsor me, I have a Patreon account. You can spend $5 a month or $10 a month or $2 a month, whatever the different spending levels are, in order to pay for essentially the continued work. So GitHub is basically going to open up this same model and bring it to the software development, to open source. I don't know anybody else that's doing this. Like who else is going to bring this? You could have maybe your own channel like this or your website, and you say, hey, here's my product. If you'd like to donate, go to this link, go to Patreon or whatnot. But GitHub is actually actively making this an actual thing inside of GitHub, which is really cool. It's going to be part of the platform of open source. Once again, a new innovation that Microsoft brings to the GitHub platform that no one else is doing. At what point are we going to start saying, you know what, maybe Microsoft isn't the old Microsoft anymore? Like, what is it going to take? I don't know how many times we keep seeing these detractors saying, oh, that same old Microsoft, right? The same old Microsoft. Boy, that Steve Ballmer, I know he had to have some sort of puppet strings on Satya or something. Like, look, just because Bill Gates is still alive doesn't mean that he's calling all the shots. There is a new Microsoft in town. They are very, very different. And it doesn't seem to matter how much they change. People are still going to believe that it's still the Internet Explorer of the 1990s battle against Netscape here. And it's never going to change. Their opinion is just dead set. That's the way it is. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that Microsoft has Blazor, and they're pardon the pun, but they're blazing a new trail with WebAssembly. They're the first framework that I know of that has fully embraced WebAssembly. Like, who else? Maybe there is somebody else. Maybe I don't know enough about the Python world. Maybe there's something there, but there really isn't. I think Kotlin has a project, but it's not. Who knows about it? Who's promoting it? Who's pushing it? Who's making it part of their actual product line, right? Microsoft is the only one doing this because they see the potential, they see the benefit, they see what this can do for our industry. Same thing with acquiring GitHub and what they're doing with GitHub, offering up now a sponsorship program. This is great. This is great news. And yes, Microsoft is probably going to make some money off of this. Absolutely. Okay? They're gonna take a percentage of whatever it is that you're making, right? They might make it a 15% or 20%. I don't even know how much it is, but they're gonna take a percentage off of however much you're making in order to process the credit cards. It's just the way it's gonna go. But that doesn't mean that this is a terrible idea, right? This is like, how can we offer up something to developers to give them an opportunity or kind of give them something, give the developers something. Let's target the developers. But also, how can we make money on this? And this is a perfectly great compromise, in my opinion. This is a great program. This is a great idea. Let's go ahead and read on a little bit. So software development and upkeep are not cheap. Even the most capable open source developers need help now and again. Absolutely. I fully admit that there are plenty of programs that I probably use that are open source that have a donate to us option, and I don't click on it. I'm sure that there are. I'm positive that there are. And sometimes I feel bad about that. Sometimes I forget about it. Sometimes I'm like, yeah, but I just want to see what it's like first, right? This is just another revenue, right? This is just another way to generate revenue for those people. And I think that I would feel pretty comfortable about doing that. Not only that, but also we'll see a little bit later that it kind of advertises that you're a sponsor. Okay, so GitHub now lets users donate to projects, teachers, coders, and other users who host their work on the site. Great. Maybe this is something I'll do. I don't know. If especially because I do, I put all of my source code up on GitHub now. At least I'm trying to. I know there's still a backlog of videos that I haven't posted the link to the GitHub stuff, but all of the files that I work with, and I post up on my other channel, that stuff goes to GitHub so people can use it. So maybe I'll open this up as another support option. I don't know. Maybe I will. I haven't signed up for it. So GitHub now lets users donate to projects, teachers, coders, and other users who host their work on the site. You can set a monthly donation amount, while creators can create benefit levels to encourage sponsors to contribute more each month. So this is a pretty typical tier system. If you donate $1, you'll get, I don't know, a mention at the end of every video, like I kind of do. Or if you donate $5, I will, I'll post a video about you. If you do $10, then you and I can have a special conference call. I will release the video 2 days early, and these folks at the $10 level will be able to view the video early. There's stuff like that goes on. So, different tiers, right? Okay, so you will need a GitHub account, obviously, and so the way it's going to happen is you need a GitHub account, and then there's going to be next to your name or everybody's name is going to be a pink, everybody that signs up for this, there's going to be a pink heart-shaped sponsor icon next to their profile name. Okay, so that way you can just click on that link and you can say, I want to donate, and it'll take you to the sponsoring page. Now, users who are sponsoring others will have a sponsoring icon. So that's kind of cool. It's a little bit of a reward system, which does happen even on my YouTube stuff, right? My Programming Made Easy. If you are a sponsor, you get a little icon that's next to it that kind of shows that you sponsor. It shows how long you've been a sponsor. So that's really cool. So now they're going to have basically a sponsoring icon next to any. If I am a sponsor of somebody, I'm going to have the sponsoring icon next to my name. And I think that's going to generate a little bit of. That's going to generate a little bit. I think that's going to be less visible, right? I don't know too many people that are just scouring through GitHub profiles. That's not really what happens. A lot of it is scouring through GitHub code, right? And what's there, what's being posted on there. But if I can see perhaps next to the name of so if I have the name of the person that authored the repository and I can see the heart next to him, that's great, right? Okay, not all developers will have access to this feature, but those who are interested in the sponsorship program can sign up for the sponsor's beta waitlist. So it is going to be in beta for the rest of the year. It's going to be a beta program. You have to sign up for it. They will be making changes to the system in response to user feedback and user usage metrics. It's of course, right? You got to go through a beta process. Sponsors and developers will have a few perks during those first 12 months. So all transaction fees will be waived. So to start out the gate under the beta program, Microsoft isn't skimming any money. They're just like, have at it. We want you to test this out. We want you to try this and see how well it goes. It's a pilot program. So all transaction fees will be waived for the sponsors. Now, there is some... and Microsoft has also pledged to match up to $5,000 in contributions made in the first year. Now, I like how this article then goes on, and we'll see in just a moment, to kind of frame a little bit of the discussion about, who the detractors are going to say. Because you know that they're going to find something to complain about. Microsoft is in charge. Microsoft is coming out with this plan. Therefore, we need to find something to complain about. Have to. Okay? So what's that going to be? The counter-argument to monetary incentives is that open source software is normally developed to solve a problem or create a free alternative to otherwise premium or centralized applications or services. They could ostensibly have pressure put on them on the creators to focus on developing software that earns the most money and neglect more niche projects. Interesting. Now, I don't know. I mean, this is totally made up. Who knows that this is going to be the argument that detractors are going to come up with? You're making it monetary. You're making a monetary incentive for people to write software. Boo-hoo. Okay, I'm sorry. Of course there's a monetary incentive. Like, I know that there are plenty of developers that have a good heart and just want to make software. That is perfectly fine. That's not the way the world works in every case, though. In fact, by and large, the majority of people are doing it for some sort of incentive, some sort of monetary incentive. It could be, if I build this product, I hope it gets the exposure and some big name software development will come and pick it up, or will come and pick me up, right? Webpack, for example. Webpack is a free project, right? Nobody's getting charged for using Webpack, but the guy who authored it works for Adobe now because he got picked up from building that project, right? Like, that's, even though there may not be a direct monetary incentive, such as a support mechanism like this, the reason that they're doing it is to get exposure and hopefully get a better job, right? And that's perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with that. I think that's, whatever motivation gets you doing it, that's a good thing. And this idea that, they're going to have pressure to go focus on software that earns the most money. Well, why is that software earning the most money? Maybe because it's good. Maybe it's because of what everybody's using, right? And if it's good and it's what everybody's using, I would want them to focus on that project because that's where the money is. That's where everybody's at. That's where the support is. Is it possible, theoretically, for some big name donor to come in and spend, I don't know, 10 grand on somebody, say, go at this project, I want you to work on it. And then, that developer gives up all the other stuff, right, that they might be working on to go focus on that one project. And would that be a travesty? Would that be like, is anybody going to be crying over that? That this guy or gal, or whatever, I guess, gender spectrum, neutral pronoun that you want, whatever, you getting this money, does that mean you're just going to give up on all those other projects, and that it's a terrible thing that you now have this money to work on a project? Is that a horrible thing? I don't think so. Is the open source community going to go, oh no, now we don't have that project. We don't have those 4 other projects that person. No, like one of the beauties of open source is the ability to fork off of these things, right? Here's a great project. The originator of it can't work on it anymore. Let's fork that library and continue on with the work on our own, right? Like it's not like so yes, there are plenty of times where a developer is working on a project and they have to stop working on it. And the community goes, oh man, that sucks because now it's not going to be updated, it's not going to continue to work, and now I got to go find an alternative. And that's fine. But there are also plenty of cases where if the product is popular enough and used enough, that someone else goes and forks off of that project and goes and builds something else out of it. That happens all the time in the community. That's one of the beautiful parts of this community, is being able to take someone else's project, because it's open source, because it's out there and available. I can fork off of that library and start building my own version of it. And then that can become popular. And I can even be the successor to what that project library was. That happens all the time. Okay, so that said, I think you guys know where I land on this. I'm not being unbiased, that is for sure. So that said, monetary support isn't a new concept in the open source world. Tip jars on platforms like PayPal or Ko-fi. Oh, I've never heard of Ko-fi, K-O-F-I. And many free applications include and encourage to contribute to donation links, right? So a lot of software gets released and, there's this donate to us button or this donate to us link. The key here is transparency. GitHub's model encourages developers to disclose all financial contributions they receive, including those from Patreon, Tidelift, Open Collective, or elsewhere. And GitHub's new sponsorship features will help consolidate those options for both developers and those who wish to support them. And I 100% agree with that statement. I like consolidation. I don't like having, 20 different ways that, you can go and sponsor somebody. I think that's a little bit ridiculous. All right, so let's give you guys a moment to, if you got some comment that you would like to say and you'd like me to read on the air, well, that would be fantastic. I will certainly love to see what you guys have to say. SWLI says, hey, SWLI, I don't think I've seen you around here before. Thank you so much for joining us on Coffee with Steve. Again, don't forget to drink your coffee. Let me go ahead and switch over to, you guys don't need to see this. There we go. There's Sasha, my cousin from Kazakhstan. So thank you so much for joining us here on Coffee with Steve. Again, don't forget to drink your coffee. It's the only way to be productive. Okay, so SWI, thank you again for joining us. I appreciate it. SWLI also says, what are the drawbacks of this? Okay. So obviously that was one thing, is the monetary support for developers, and they could possibly start to neglect their other projects. And I totally understand that. I do understand that. I don't think that it's quite as big of a concern as might possibly be made out to be. I think the one concern that I do have is, what is the percentage that Microsoft is going to skim? This is the continuous issue with sites like Patreon or, there's, gosh dang it, I can't remember all the other ones. There was another one, though, that was very much like Patreon that got shut down by PayPal. But whenever you have these kind of things, like how much is YouTube skimming off of the money that I make on advertising on my main channel? That's a big problem. How much money are they making yes, they're providing a platform, but they've got to recoup their $7 billion investment. Is this going to be, if this is a successful program, they might potentially lean on it a bit more for their income, right? That is one potential drawback, is that they might say, this is pulling in, I see our creators are pulling in, say, $20 million every year. So instead of the 10% that we're currently marking up on it, let's do 20 and we'll double our income, right? That's entirely possible. It also puts a little bit of financial control in the hands of Microsoft. So this is another thing that we run into. The deplatforming and monetization. So this is probably actually a good drawback to talk about. So when it comes to like YouTube content creators, there is definitely a heavy bent by the companies that run those platforms to try to kind of silence who doesn't fall in line with their way of thinking, right? We have a very centralized power structure in terms of technology, mostly in Silicon Valley and in Seattle, right? Like that's where the big players are. And they kind of live in this social bubble, right? And they're all talking to each other. They're exchange, the people who are developers go back and forth between the different companies of the two different areas. So there's kind of this bubble, and if you don't fall in line with the philosophy of the company, you don't have a job. And that has moved onto the platforms themselves, the Facebooks, the Twitters, the YouTubes. And that's where a lot of the discussion is currently happening about social systems, right? And what ends up happening is, if you don't fall in line with their exact with their exact philosophy, if you say anything outside of that, there is a big threat that you will be deplatformed. And this can happen as a form of mob rule, right? You get enough Twitter users angry at a tweet, they contact Twitter and report your tweet, and now you no longer have a Twitter account, right? And if your livelihood is based upon that Twitter account, you just lost your livelihood. So there's kind of this wishy-washy thing that could happen. Like, it's a great idea It gets you your money. It gives you another source of income to do what it is that you want to work on. But if somebody says that they don't like what you're doing and they can get enough people behind them to complain to the corporate offices, then yeah, you can be deplatformed. You can be kicked off. That source of income that you relied upon can be taken away like that. And you have no recourse because they'll say you violated the terms of service in some way. And they just, boom, you're done. So I think that's kind of a consistent problem that's happening with lots of different platforms that are content creators right now. I think there's a little bit less of a chance of that with this particular circumstance, right? With GitHub, what's somebody going to do on GitHub that's going to be controversial? I don't know that there's really much there, but it is a potential drawback. The other thing is, there is kind of this growing sense of Microsoft is consolidating power. They're getting their hands on everything, and we need to be cautious of this. Azure is now the largest online cloud service. They surpassed AWS. I think it was mid last year. And it's been a constant battle between AWS and Microsoft with Azure. So you have Microsoft getting more and more involved in things. They're now, when it comes to like Sony, they just had a deal with Sony for the gaming systems to offer up a cloud-hosted services. There's potential drawbacks to this, but by and large, I don't know how this isn't a good thing for developers. I don't know how this is. I'm curious to see, and if you've got an idea, like maybe I'm just missing something here. Maybe I'm missing one of the danger signs. And if that's the case, by all means, please drop me a comment in the comment section below. I'd love to hear your feedback. I'd love to find out why you think this might be a bad idea. But I got to tell you, what more can Microsoft do? What more can Microsoft do to try to convince developers that they are not the same old Microsoft of the 90s and early 2000s? This is not the Steve Ballmer or the Bill Gates Microsofts. This is the Satya Nadellas. And trust me, I have my qualms with Satya, right? I think I'm just going to say this. I think he's a really boring speaker to listen to. And this is coming from me. I know I can drone on about things. I can be very boring. But he's really boring to listen to. I can't stand his keynote speeches. I mean, he's talking about all these exciting things. Oh. Wow, interesting. Okay. Maybe I'm just being a little loud. Sorry, Center Negative. Let me pull this down. Interesting. It does look like it's kicking up a little bit. I apologize. Sorry, guys. He's talking about... so Center Negative says that you need to reduce the gain on your mic a little bit. Even with the volume turned down, your audio is blown out a bit. I'm not entirely sure what's going on there. I have all my settings at the same thing that they always are, but I am noticing that it does seem to be picking up a lot more. I don't know if it's my microphone has changed. I mean, the setting is exactly the same. I don't know. Can you turn down your speakers? I don't know. I'll have to figure that out. I'll try to take a look at it a little bit later. So, I don't really know what Microsoft can do, right? Satya is trying to be more developer-centric, and which is funny because Steve Ballmer was, we need to be more developer-centric. We need to try to get developers on our side. That's what Steve Ballmer kept saying, and I think they just did a really terrible job of it because it was more of this us versus them mentality for the longest time. And this goes way back. It was very much a Microsoft is seen as the Goliath, and everybody else is the David. They're the small time, they're the underdog, they're the ones that you want to root for and just take down Microsoft. And I think Microsoft definitely came down a peg, especially after, like Google and Amazon became as big as they are. Microsoft isn't what they were before, and they were losing more and more. They were losing developers, they were losing momentum in the industry because they had been basically number one because of their operating system. In my opinion, it was not just Google and Amazon, but also was the change of technology. And Microsoft didn't match that very well, right? It came to cell phones. Everybody started using cell phones and tablets, right? iPads. So Microsoft didn't have an iPad that, they didn't really have a good iPad, competitor. They didn't have a cell phone that was a Microsoft cell phone that was a good competitor. They just kind of had the operating system. They had Microsoft Office. And that was kind of it. That was kind of their product line, was Microsoft Office and Windows. And people stopped using PCs. People stopped buying PCs at the rate that they were. So you didn't need an operating system anymore because you're buying a phone. What's on the phone? Well, what's on the phone is Android or Apple, right? So Microsoft is losing their market share. What are they going to do about it? And they just kept saying, we need to get more and more developers on our side, but they weren't doing anything to get those developers, right? They were just continuing to focus on their product line and exclusivity of the products that they were offering. And that was a problem. Satya Nadella has come in and basically said, we need to become more open. We need to get rid of these practices that isolate Microsoft from the rest of the community. And that's what's been going on. And that's, again, this is what GitHub is all about. This is what the acquisition of GitHub is about. We want developers on our side. We want them to start saying Microsoft isn't a force for evil anymore, right? They're a force for good. They need to take that namesake of what, Google started out with, don't be evil. I think Microsoft has taken up that mantle. I mean, that's a problem for me that Google got rid of that. But I think that Microsoft is starting to kind of carry that banner. Don't be evil. Let's do good things. Let's try to be open. Let's try to benefit developers. So I think this is all really good news. This new sponsorship program on GitHub, this is fantastic. This is a great idea. This is taking something, admittedly, that already exists, right? This isn't some new thing. This isn't some new invention that Microsoft created. All they've done is said, hey, that's a really good idea. Let's also add it to our platform because we got all the developers. Let's figure out a way to take that idea for developers and put it on our platform and kind of make it easy and convenient for everybody. What's wrong with that, right? What's wrong with that? Well, what's wrong with that to some people is, oh, you're consolidating power in the hands of Microsoft. Okay, look, you're going to say that about anything Microsoft does. Honestly, is there any, what do you need? You need Microsoft to just completely break apart in order for you to be satisfied? Is that what you need? You just need Microsoft to just completely blow apart every single into tiny little fragmented pieces, then you'll be happy with Microsoft. Then you'll say Microsoft is good. Because quite honestly, what more could they do? They're doing everything that they can in order to be more inviting to developers, and I think it's fantastic. Center Negative says, I won't be fully on board with MS's new image until they release Office on Linux. I think that's coming. I honestly think that's coming. The main problem is technologically, I don't think they can. They're still on the old comm system with Office, right? That's my big bugaboo about access, and I've been saying this for a long time. As a matter of fact, I just had this conversation with somebody yesterday, that Office is still based on the old 32-bit technology of comm, and it's not .NET based, right? The back end of Access, the back end of Word, the back end of Office in general is not .NET. If they transitioned it over to .NET, they would make their lives a lot easier, right? You could then build Office for Linux, but as long as they stay on the old systems, they can't move to Linux unless Linux comes and unless they can develop a solution on Linux that can run those old COM libraries. So I don't think that that's going to be the case. I think COM is so far old at this point that it's amazing that they're still even continuing to push the products, except they're just so popular, right? Office is still popular. That's why they keep pushing people to go online, right? They want people to stop using Microsoft Office. They're actively trying to get people to stop using Microsoft Office and use the online one instead, because they need to get people off of the technology so that they don't have to continue to support it. And so far, their efforts have kind of failed. It's just such a pervasive platform, and they continue to make so much good money off of it. How are they going to get rid of it? And again, this is where I keep saying, if they take, it's a lot of effort, it's a lot of resources to convert that system over to .NET. But once they do, they eliminate all these problems. Senator Negative says, haven't they been slowly rewriting it? How is it run on OS X, which is BSD based? I know it's missing VBA, but it's something. Yeah, I mean, it's just a different set of libraries. You're right. Like they've been slowly rewriting parts of it in order to get it to run on. I think what that is a bit of a virtualization. I'm not entirely sure the mechanisms of how they get that to work. That's a good question. I think there's a virtualization mechanism to it, but I could be wrong. Let's see. How does Office run on Mac? You can run Microsoft. So this is the headline. You can run Microsoft Office on your Mac, but don't. Office 365. And run Office applications on a Mac. And I don't know that we're going to... I don't know the actual mechanism behind that. How to run... Well, I don't want to do a bunch of dead air. I'm gonna have to wrap it up here pretty soon anyway. It's already 8:07. And I have got to get to work, but I thought there was a mechanism of virtualization that they were tapping into in order to make it work, but I could be wrong. It's entirely possible that they are doing something, writing some new libraries. Maybe it's completely rewritten. Yeah, I'll have to look into it myself. Oh, Senator Negative says, I'll have to look into it myself. Well, I know Office works on Linux with Crossover Office, which is proprietary software, but not so well with Wine. I think here's the thing. If it runs in a Mac, it's still all Linux kernel. I think that you could, there shouldn't be any reason that if it runs on a Mac, it should be easily portable over to Linux. So maybe what you can run on Linux is just going to be the Mac version of it. And I think that they did emphasize on making a build for Mac, but I could have sworn there was some virtualization that was going on there. I'm not totally sure. These are some of the deep level specifics that I just haven't had time to investigate. I got a bunch of other stuff I got to do, but it is interesting. It is interesting to find out what is Microsoft going to do. Again, I think if they just converted it to .NET, right? With .NET 5, they're going to be cross-platform. So if they could make Office a .NET built on .NET libraries, it could theoretically run on everything. So why not do that? Like, it's time, Microsoft. It's time. Make Office .NET. You're going to solve a ridiculous amount of problems if you just do that. The one example that I'm constantly giving is you get the way that an Access database ends up starting out is some manager who's a quote-unquote power user, right? Has a good amount of knowledge about business practices, and takes and builds this Access application, and they do that in such a way that they're pulling queries from database sources, they're asking their DBAs where that table data is, they're creating reports, they're writing queries, they're maybe even doing a form or two with some macros. They're building this database to work with stuff, and then they start becoming more efficient with it. Next thing you know, their other managers are like, hey, where did you get this report? Where did you get this query? Where did you get these results? And they're like, oh, yeah, I built this database. I built this Access application to go do this thing. Next thing you know, you've got 5 or 6 people that are managers that are all using this program. And now they need features to be added to it. They need updates. And you can't have that manager who created it, who doesn't really know a thing at all about Access other than just simple stuff. You can't ask them to support and build new features on this product. So they have to go searching for someone to support and create and continue to build the Access database. They run into, so they go to their developers, right? They have a bunch of developers building websites and stuff. And they say, hey, here's this Access database. Can you continue to build, can you add a feature to it? And the developer goes, Access? What are you thinking? Yeah, I can't do Access. Access is a nothing, right? That's not real software. That's not a real programming language. And so now the company's stuck with this product that's really good. They can't do anything with it. They either have to go find some Access developer, or they have to have their developers in-house build something from scratch that imitates what the Access database does. And it's a huge cost. Now, if you take that Access database, and if Microsoft instead made it .NET based, you solve that problem. Because now that person who's building this Access application can just go, here, developers, take it over. And the developers are like, oh yeah, this is in .NET, I can take care of that. Right? Like that's what you can do. You can hire a .NET developer to support it. Now, if you continue the way that Microsoft is going with that product line, it's not going to get solved. It's just never going to happen. I'm positive that there are reasons why they're not doing this. I know I'm not the only person to come up with this idea. That why isn't this .NET based? Why haven't we converted over? I guarantee you somebody in Microsoft at some point has been saying, why don't we just do this? So I'm sure this has been discussed, and I'm sure that there are reasons why they're not doing it. The most likely reason is cost, right? I think it's just too expensive to make that conversion, and they don't want to do that. But at the same time, look at what kind of pandemonium it's caused them, because they didn't. If now they have to keep trying to come up, like what was the deal with Light Switch? Anybody remember Light Switch? Light Switch was supposed to be a simple development process to build something like Access, but using .NET. Where did that go? Nowhere. It survived, I think, two preview versions in Visual Studio, and that was it. And then it's gone. It doesn't exist anymore. It's kind of this. Now they're trying to do like Power BI and stuff, right? Like we're trying to get you stop using that old technology and start using this new technology, and people are rejecting it. Why would I do that? This is a perfectly good thing. Why would I stop using this thing to go do Power BI? And I'm not saying that there was anything wrong with Power BI. It's just you got a lot of people that are used to these tools, and you're not really catering to them. Instead, you're saying, stop what you're doing and do what we want you to do. And that's never going to work, right? It's not going to work. They've got to come up with a way of converting those Access developers and Access users to a version that can then be more robustly advanced, I guess. I don't know what the best way to say that is. All right, well, it is 8:14. I'm going quite a bit long today. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining me today on today's episode of Coffee with Steve. Again, don't forget to drink your coffee. All right, so Sasha and I are going to tell you, thank you so much for joining us today. I hope you guys had a wonderful day, and I hope you guys do enjoy this channel. Please don't forget to like, favorite, subscribe, all that good stuff in order to make sure that this channel continues to grow. It's a brand new project for me, kind of pulling away from off of my Programming Made Easy, trying to make a little bit more of a social commentary and providing you guys some more regular content. So hopefully you guys are enjoying it. Thanks so much for joining me, and I hope you guys, again, have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your day and week. Bye-bye.